Welcome to this video, a new video on middle game strategy. Yeah, this series is mostly about demonstrating strategic ideas and middle game themes that you might be able to use in your own games, and maybe remember the kind of ideas and themes when they come up in your own game. This video is about a specific type of sacrifice that very often can be used to break passive defenses. We very often encounter situations where one side is obviously better, but it's very tough to break through, and very often there you need to do something special to really win the game and convert the large advantage that you have. I have selected one example from my own practice that I'm going to show you now. It's about a position arising around move 30. I will very briefly go through the start of the game up to this point, just so that you get a feel what developed beforehand. It's not meant to be a comprehensive analysis of the game. This was played in 2005. It was a German league game. My opponent, Chlechowitz, is a player of master level strength, about 2200 at the time. We got an opening, one of those nameless openings, I believe, with d6 and bishop g4. This is a pretty decent choice if black just wants to get a playable game without any big theoretical workload. One problem with this defense is that very often you need to give up your bishop pair very early, and this is mostly on f3. After g3, black very often takes on f3, but my opponent avoided that. He went with a typical setup in the center with e5. I didn't really know how to combat that at the time, and I'm still not sure now. Back then I was thinking of a plan that at least gets me the two bishops. It's a close position, so the two bishops are not super important, but still, knight h4 was my choice, getting the knight to f5, and here at least I'm able to take on e7. This is not a great bishop, I know, but still it's two bishops. So this actually happened, and I also get a central superiority. One problem is that this bishop on g6 is a really passive piece. It looks at the e4 pawn, but it's really not doing that much. I decided after rook e8 to close the center, which does not look or does not seem to be super logical with two bishops on my side. But I was a bit afraid that he might open up the center at the right moment to get some counterplay against e4. And still his bishop on g6 is offside. So that's not a bad choice to keep a long-term advantage. He captured on d5. This surprised me, I remember that, because I really welcome to have an open line. I was more concerned in a way, not like afraid, but that he might close everything. White is unquestionably better here because of the bishop on g6. This very much gives me additional active ideas like f4 at the right moment. I still have two pawn breaks, sorry about that, b4 and f4. Those can now be combined. Yeah, still, I think maybe he should still keep the position closed, but he captured on d5 and put the knight on c5. This was certainly the idea, but this knight on c5, while looking active, it's not a stable piece. Long term I will have b4. Yeah, at the moment e4 is hanging, and I decided to play the somewhat ugly move f3, but I think this is still a good move. It has two main ideas. My bishop on g2 is not a good piece anyway, and it will relocate in any case. It will go to f1 to play on the queen side, or after h4, bishop h3 might be used on this diagonal. g2 is not a great place anyway, so I don't mind f3. And f3 really covers e4 reliably, so those pieces, they all they all look at e4, but well, this is very much covered, right? He can play knight h5, but after king h2 I have this protected g3, so I'm not weakening my king side that much. Note that I have a dark squared bishop and he does not, so those dark squared weaknesses don't matter that much. He went a5. I tried to block the queen side, and I just continued logically. g4 is a move that I didn't like to play that much, but I wanted to prevent f5. Yeah, just make sure he does not get counterplay. It's not so clear to me actually where the point comes where black's position becomes very, very bad. It's clear that he's passive and worse, but it's not clear where it sort of gets to the point where he's really, really almost losing. Here white is just better, but it's not like I have a direct winning plan. Yeah, I continued here with typical moves, knight to b5, attacking here and threatening on c7, and now I'm doubling on the c file. This was an additional idea of f3, by the way, to get this doubling in. Yeah, and we got to this position. Here it's an interesting moment. Here he played the move b6, and this definitely surprised me. I remember that, because I was thinking at the time, well, if he goes b6, he's really weakening the c6 square. And it was not yet clear that he needed to play the move. I'm definitely putting some pressure on c5, but it's not like I'm threatening to win a pawn or anything. He could have easily delayed this move or maybe avoided it at all. In the back of my mind, I already had this idea that happens later, because it's so typical of a pawn structure of that type. We will see later what I'm talking about. Yeah, I went bishop f1. Yeah, this is clear. The bishop needs to be on this diagonal. Knight to b8, b3. Yeah, a typical procedure. White wants to play b4, but you don't want to do this because black can block the whole thing with a4. Also, this should be quite okay for white. a4 is a bit exposed, but it's not necessary to allow that, so I went for the slow preparation. b3, then a3, then b4. This is how you do it normally. Knight a6, a3, preparing b4. I absolutely need to get rid of the c5 knight. This is blocking the c file, and therefore the only open file that provides me with some entry squares. Queen d8, rook b2, just preparing b4. Yeah, it's a bit difficult. Maybe b6 is definitely something that's giving ground, but I'm not quite sure where the point comes where black is losing. Knight c7, an interesting moment. I don't exactly remember my rationale here, because I now captured on c7. It was not a bad move. I mean, it keeps a very substantial advantage for white. But now looking at it, I also very much like to just drop back to c3, as it keeps the pressure on. It does not exchange any pieces, and I still have b4. So this is also a very good move, maybe even stronger. I'm not totally sure. Well, I captured, and rook c2. Of course, he cannot take, it's a pin. So I'm on the c file now. I have doubled, and I threatened b4 now. Yeah, black has only this defense to b4 really. Needs to remove the rook from the c file. Yeah, rook c3. Yeah, you don't want to go b4, as there is this strange type of defense. We have time. Rook c3 is a good prep move. Yeah, that avoids those kind of things. And black still is sort of just sitting around. By now it gets very, very critical, exactly due to the thing that happens next. I went b4 now. Takes. He went to a4. Yeah, not sure. Is there something better? This? I'm invading right away, and well, knight a6 is also very, very ugly. I can just go here if everything else fails. Yeah, he went to a4, queen e1, and now knight to d7. Yeah, he could try to go here, but ultimately this knight is yeah, is sort of trapped in my camp. He can go, we can go like that, and now it's gone. I will take it next. This isn't something that should be taken lightly, this decision to take with the dark squared bishop, to take a piece, so the dark squares are exposed, but still white will be a pawn up and has excellent winning chances. He went to d7. Yeah, queen is improved. Queen f2 was also a good move. Now he went knight to f8, queen f2, and rook b7. Yeah, I now found that the queen is best on f2. Here we come to the position where, because the position that is the reason why I chose to show this game. It's quite clear that white enjoys a good position. He has doubled on the c file, the important open file. It's got two bishops. I have a weakness to attack on b6. d6 is weak. Yeah, so all this adds up to a substantial white advantage. But how exactly do you win? It's actually not that easy. I mean, if you know the motif, it is easy, but it can be very tricky if you try to find some elaborate maneuver to improve your position. Yeah, like can I triple on the c file, those kind of things. In fact, here the solution lies in a sacrifice. White now can break through with the move rook to c6, using this weakened square. And this is what I hinted at when I said that I was quite glad to see the move b6 being played, because this is a huge help here for white, that I have this entry square. It really is a very typical thing to happen, to have this kind of advanced square in an open file where you can just put a rook and let it take by a minor piece, because the advantages that you get after the capture are so enormous. In this case, in this concrete case, it is just flat out totally winning if he captures. Well, he did take, but here it's also a question of what else. Very often the compensation is more long-term. Here it is very concrete, in fact, after the capture. Let us briefly check what happens if he does not capture. Of course, what I do is I just attack b6, and he really has no way to defend it. Something like this is not really tough. Or let's say, if he goes, what could he do? Something like this. I have this move. This is offside, threatening queen a2. And he really has absolutely no move now. Note that the immediate b5 could be still answered by getting the knight to c5. Something like this is not as convincing. Yeah, rook c6, b5 was a possibility to keep this pawn on the board, but now white gets bishop b6 in, all because of the rook on the 6th rank. Queen moves and the bishop c7, and now d6 is gone. Yeah, this b5 move really made this bishop on a4 being totally out of the game, and I'm winning the important d6 pawn now. Yeah, he decided to take at the end, but this is now a very clear win. White takes with the pawn, and now this establishes a multitude of things. The pawn itself is of course dangerous on the 6th rank, but it also helps with some other things. One thing is that this is the concrete thing about this position. I'm directly winning b6, which makes the win very clear. He cannot really go anywhere to protect the pawn. This is even worse. So he went here, and then I took on b6. So it's two connected passes, which is just enormous. On the other hand, very often you have this kind of, well, sacrifice of the exchange to activate your pieces even more. What it does is, after the pawn shifting from d5, in this case to c6, it clears the d5 square, which very often can be very useful for pieces. Just imagine a knight on d5 would be fantastic. Also a bishop now would be able to go to this diagonal and have a great position right in the middle of the board. In the game, as mentioned, it is even worse, as the b6 pawn is immediately lost. Bishop takes, he went here, and now b5. Those pawns are simply far too strong. Black went knight e6, bishop e3, making the b pawn, freeing the b pawn to move. Rook here, and I first activated the bishop. Yeah, why not? The bishop is certainly nicely placed on d5. Went here, bishop d5, and now I'm ready for b6. Black has no way to stop that. He went king e7, b6, and now the rook is trapped. Yeah, here I expected resignation, but it didn't happen. He decided to continue after giving up the rook for a moment, which was also influenced by time trouble. Yeah, it's really not there's nothing interesting anymore. White is just a piece up. I also got this c pawn to promote quickly after we had finished the time issues. He resigned. So it's important to note this motif. Yeah, it's the kind of position where you have an open file and you have a weak square on the 6th rank. And very often the way to proceed is to put a rook on the square, even when it can be captured. This is a trait that gives you a strong pawn on the 6th rank, a good square that is normally cleared by the pawn shifting from, in this case, d5 to c6, and it's a huge space advantage. This really happens a lot in many games. It can be the c file. It can also be on other files. Quite often it will be the d file. With a half open d file, you sometimes have pawns on, let's say, e5 and c5 and a weak spot on d6, and you just put the rook on d6 and let black capture the rook just to free all your pieces and establish this fantastic pawn. Here it was even supported with concrete play. So if you feel like it's difficult to breach through such a passive defense and you have those kind of weaknesses in the opponent's camp, very often think of an exchange sacrifice. Yeah, putting the rook right in the opponent's camp, like here. It's very difficult to withstand such a pressure, and if the capture is giving you lots of activity and compensation, it's very often well worth considering. Here it is, as mentioned, a very concrete win, but in many cases it will not be that concrete, but it will sort of help you transform your advantage and get some progress going in the game, not staying in this sort of deadlock where there's nothing much happening. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video and got this sort of have visualized this motif that might come up in one of your games. Thanks for watching.